It began on a crisp autumn morning when the heavy, time-worn doors of the historic Hillsborough County Courthouse swung open, revealing a world steeped in tradition and the echoes of countless legal battles. The ancient facade of the building, its brick walls softened by layers of ivy and memories, stood as a silent witness to generations of struggle and justice. On this day, as the soft golden light filtered through deep red velvet drapes, every surface inside the courthouse seemed to shimmer with the promise of change. Pam Bondi stepped through those imposing doors with a purpose that could not be ignored. Her heels struck the polished marble floor with a steady rhythm, a cadence that resonated like a drumbeat of revolution throughout the hallowed halls. For years, she had been dismissed, belittled, and underestimated by a system that favored the powerful. Today, however, she carried not only her own determination, but also the hopes of every person who had ever felt voiceless in the face of injustice. As Pam made her way down the long, echoing corridor, the courthouse's atmosphere came alive with the quiet murmur of anticipation. The scent of aged paper, mixed with a hint of fresh coffee from an early morning break room, filled the air. Every step she took was a deliberate act, a silent proclamation that the time for complacency was over. In that moment, every onlooker in the courtroom, from the seasoned attorneys in tailored suits to the young interns clutching their notebooks, felt an electric charge, as if the very fabric of the old system was beginning to unravel. Inside the courtroom, the scene was set like a grand theater. High vaulted ceilings framed the space with an air of dignity, while ornate chandeliers cast intricate patterns of light and shadow on the walls adorned with portraits of long-departed judges and storied litigators. The atmosphere was at once intimidating and inspiring, steeped in history, yet buzzing with the promise of a new chapter. Today, that chapter would be written by Pam Bondi, a woman determined to transform her personal struggle into a beacon of hope for those who had been wronged. On the opposing side, Charles Merritt, a veteran litigator known more for his polished theatrics and old-money arrogance than for genuine legal prowess, sat with an air of smug certainty. His eyes, cold and dismissive, briefly flickered over Pam as he casually rifled through his meticulously prepared files. It was as if he already believed the outcome was predetermined. The underdog was bound to be crushed beneath the weight of corporate power and legal technicalities. Across the room, Judge Callaway, a man whose reputation for stern impartiality was well known, surveyed the proceedings with a measured gaze. Initially, his expression carried a hint of condescension, as if he doubted that the young, defiant Pam could truly alter the course of the case. Yet, beneath this veneer of formality, something was stirring in the hearts of those present. The jury, composed of everyday citizens whose faces betrayed curiosity, skepticism, and, in some, a quiet hope, watched intently. Even the court clerks and bailiffs, accustomed to the predictable rhythms of routine legal proceedings, found themselves leaning in, sensing that the day's events might break a long-standing cycle of injustice. When the session finally began, the courtroom was enveloped in a heavy silence. The air felt charged, as if every second were laden with the weight of destiny. Pam Bondi approached the podium with a calm that belied the storm raging within her. Her eyes, fixed on the judge, shone with a determination born of years of struggle. Taking a deep breath, she addressed the court in a clear, resonant voice. "Your Honor, today's case transcends the mere mechanics of law. This is not about obscure technicalities or fine-print loopholes. It is about ending a practice that has long stripped people of their hard-earned savings and dignity. It is about accountability and the promise that every citizen's voice will be heard." Her words rippled through the room, each syllable a spark lighting the dark corners of skepticism. As Pam began to unfold her meticulously prepared evidence, she spoke with the precision of a seasoned orator and the passion of a true advocate for justice. One by one, she introduced documents that revealed how the defendant, a major corporation with deep pockets and even deeper secrets, had lured unsuspecting customers with the promise of low-risk investments. However, Hidden in the labyrinthine language of their contracts were clauses designed to trap and exploit these individuals. With each piece of evidence, Pam painted a picture of systematic deceit, a deliberate effort to mislead those who trusted the very institutions meant to protect them. At one point, she paused and lifted a particularly damning document high for all to see. "This," she declared, her voice firm and unwavering, "is not a mere clerical error or a misunderstanding. It is a carefully constructed trap, engineered to deceive and profit at the expense of the common person. This is fraud, plain and simple." Her statement hung in the air like a challenge, a gauntlet thrown at the feet of those who believed that corporate might could silence the truth. In that charged moment, the atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Charles Merritt's confident smirk faltered as he struggled to counter the clarity of Pam's argument. Judge Callaway, who had once viewed Pam with a dismissive smile, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the undeniable weight of the evidence. The jury, initially passive, now exchanged glances filled with a mix of shock and burgeoning resolve. It was as if every person in that room, regardless of their background, suddenly realized that they too had been complicit in a system that allowed such exploitation to continue unchecked. Pam's presentation grew increasingly impassioned as she recounted the human cost behind each document. Every contract, every clause, represents the shattered hopes of someone who trusted that their future would be secure, she said, her voice breaking slightly with emotion. These are not just numbers on a page. They're the lives of hardworking individuals who believed in fairness and were betrayed by those who claimed to safeguard their interests. Her words resonated deeply, transforming the courtroom into a space where legal arguments merged with the raw power of human experience. The long hours she had spent gathering evidence, poring over every detail, and preparing her defense were now manifest in every word and gesture. With each piece of evidence laid out before the judge, Pam chipped away at the defenses constructed by corporate greed and legal technicalities. Her relentless pursuit of truth was not only a legal strategy, it was a moral crusade. As the hours ticked by, the courtroom witnessed a dramatic metamorphosis. The once cold formality gave way to an intense, almost palpable energy, a convergence of justice and hope that filled every corner of the room. Judge Callaway's earlier skepticism had melted into a respectful, if reluctant, acknowledgement of the undeniable truth presented by Pam Bondi. Even Charles Merritt, the embodiment of the entrenched establishment, began to exhibit signs of uncertainty as he struggled to muster a coherent rebuttal. In a pivotal moment that would define the day's proceedings, Pam rose from the podium once more, her gaze sweeping over the entire courtroom with unwavering resolve. "This document," she proclaimed, holding up a file bound in crisp paper and marked with highlighted clauses, "is irrefutable proof that the company designed its contracts to ensnare its customers. They hid their true intentions behind layers of legal jargon, knowing that most people would never have the means to challenge them. This is not a case of mere miscommunication. It is an act of deliberate deception." The silence that followed was profound. Every eye in the courtroom, from the most seasoned jurist to the newest intern, was fixed on that document. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present, as if time itself had paused to bear witness to the unveiling of a long-hidden truth. Judge Callaway's expression, once marked by condescension, had transformed into one of deep concentration. He scanned the document with a slow, deliberate motion, his features gradually hardening as the implications of Pam's evidence became clear. In that moment, the courtroom was united by a single, unspoken realization. The injustice at hand was not just a legal anomaly, but a systemic failure that demanded accountability. After what felt like an eternity, Judge Callaway finally spoke, his voice resonant and measured. "The evidence presented leaves no doubt that the defendant has flagrantly neglected its contractual obligations, engaging in practices designed to deceive and exploit. Accordingly, I find that there is no basis for dismissing these claims. This case shall proceed to trial, so that every aspect of this egregious violation of trust may be fully examined." The decisive strike of the gavel echoed like a clarion call through the marble corridors, reverberating in the hearts of everyone present. In that instant, a collective sigh of relief and determination swept through the courtroom. Pam Bondi's unyielding pursuit of justice had broken through the walls of indifference and prejudice, setting in motion a process that promised accountability and reform. Outside the courthouse, the atmosphere was electric. Reporters jostled for position, their cameras flashing and microphones thrust forward as they clamored for a word from the triumphant attorney. Amid the commotion, an elderly woman in a faded blue cardigan, her eyes glistening with tears of both sorrow and hope, approached Pam. "Does this mean we finally have a chance?" the woman asked in a trembling voice. Pam knelt down to meet the woman's gaze, her expression soft yet resolute. "Yes," she replied, her voice carrying the weight of hard-won victory. "Your fight for justice has just begun. Today, we have shown that truth cannot be hidden behind fine print and empty promises. Today, we have taken the first step in reclaiming what is rightfully yours." That single exchange encapsulated the spirit of the day. The courthouse, once a symbol of unyielding tradition and indifference, had been transformed into a beacon of hope, a sanctuary where the oppressed could finally see a path to redress. Pam Bondi's impassioned stand had ignited a spark that would, she believed, spread far beyond the confines of that courtroom. As dusk settled over the city, casting long, hopeful shadows over the courthouse steps, Pam took one last look back at the grand building. In her heart, she knew that the battle was far from over. There would be more challenges, more battles against entrenched power and corporate deceit. Yet, on that day, in that sacred hall of justice, she had proven that courage and determination could shatter even the most impenetrable barriers. A final message echoed in her mind, a call to every person who had ever felt powerless. Stand up, speak out, and fight for your rights. For justice is not given, it is demanded by those who refuse to be silenced. On-screen text. Final rhetorics. Are you ready to defend your rights? Does the call for justice resonate within your soul? Remember, true victory is written with justice. Now is the time to act. As the crowd dispersed into the cooling evening, the courthouse stood as a timeless testament to the day's events. A day when one voice rose above the din of corruption and complacency, and in doing so, changed the course of history. Pam Bondi's journey in that courtroom was not just a legal victory. It was a rallying cry for every individual who dared to dream of a fairer, more accountable world. So listen, reflect, and take action, because when the oppressed rise and demand justice, the world can no longer ignore the truth. True justice is the defiant cry that shatters silence. Let Pam Bondi's story inspire you to raise your voice and join the fight for a brighter, more equitable future. If you believe that every individual deserves to have their rights defended, if you feel that injustice must never go unchallenged, then stand with us and let your voice be heard. For in every act of courage, in every cry against silence, lies the power to transform the world.